Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Network. I'm your host, Greg Ambrosius, and once again, I'm interviewing a 2025 NFBC National Champion on NFBC Champions Podcast Week. This is the fifth one of my interviews that I've done on the High Stakes Fantasy Network. So go to our YouTube channel, High Stakes Fantasy Network. You can get all of the previous interviews. This is a special one, my friends, as my next guest is Todd Hoppe, the winner of the 2025 Main Event Championship and that $200,000 grand prize. Todd, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, first of all, congrats on winning the industry's most prestigious title. It's your first national title in the NFBC. So how did it feel to win that $200,000 grand prize and the main event title?
Yeah, it's pretty surreal, honestly. The exact moment is kind of funny because I was actually at my son's club baseball game and I was planning to follow along as things finished up. And it turned out the official scorer never showed up for his game. And so I got roped into doing that job and so could not follow any of the baseball happening on the last day. And so had to wait until the end of that game before I saw all of the congratulatory text messages and stuff from folks. So it's, like I said, pretty surreal moment, but a lot of fun.
That is parenting at its finest, right? Nothing gets in the way of your boys' baseball game and making sure you probably gave them a couple of hits when there were probably errors as well, right? That game?
Of course.
Yeah, there you go. Good job. Good parenting for sure. All right. You are now our 21st different champion in the 22-year history of the NFBC. Only the great Lindy Hinkleman has won this overall title twice. So I got to ask you, what does it take to take down this title again and win it all?
A lot of luck. No, I mean, I think, you obviously it's a grind. It's a long season. You've really got to be obsessed with it throughout the year. I think you also have to kind of adapt to how things change every year. You said, what was it, 22 years now?
Yep.
I imagine, just think about how much things have changed since that first year to now. I think in order, if anybody can do it, a second time and a third time, then you've almost certainly adapted to how the game's changed and how people play fantasy baseball differently. That's I think probably the hardest part, honestly.
Absolutely. And think back to 22 years. I mean, it was 2004. I mean, batting averages are way down, right? Steals have been down for a while. Now they're starting to go up. Wins. I mean, wins are so tough. You don't get guys having complete games anymore. So, people have asked us to change the rules, but I'm just not going to. I think everyone's got to adapt to the game and find those wins or pick closers earlier, pick starting pitchers earlier. I mean, don't you agree that the game is always going to change? And for me to try to adapt to the rules would be foolish, I think.
That's great. It's actually perfect because you don't have to change anything about the rules, and the game itself changes every year. So there's new strategy. It's a totally different game every year, and your rules are exactly the same.
Yeah. It's funny because the one thing people want is a DL list, but you already have 450 players being taken, right? And so we have never done the DL, and we never will as long as I'm involved. We started out with only 6 bench spots the first year, and right away people said add one more. And I thought, 30 rounds makes sense because it's the even number of who's going first. And so that was the one change we made in year 2, but we have not changed really anything about our rules. I don't know if that's good or bad, or if it's because my gray hair and everything, but we have not really changed much other than adding one more bench spot.
I like it. No reason to change a good thing.
All right, good stuff. So got to ask you, have you spent all this $200,000 or just reinvested back in the NFBC?
I've tried to spend it on entry fees, but couldn't get all the way there. So yeah, took my kid to a couple Mariners playoff games.
Nice.
When first got the check, that was a big one, and then reinvesting a lot of it back into our house here as well. I got a house that's built in the early 1900s, and so there's a lot of work that we've been meaning to do, and that we're putting back into the house. So it's that's where a lot of it goes.
The wife understands all the hours you take on these teams now, right?
Yep.
I love it. All right. But I love the Mariner games with your boy as well. So, all right. So this was a team that you drafted on the final Wednesday night of the season, 11:30 p.m. Pacific time. You live in Portland, Oregon. So that was 8:30 your time. I mean, we have drafts over a 3-week period, and you guys love being in the early ones, some in the middle, obviously the live events and such. You kind of like the later drafts. Talk a little bit about why you do with the main event.
Yeah, I've been meaning to bug you to give me that 11:30 slot again this year. I've been looking for it in the lobby.
If it's not there, I'll tell Jeff to add it. All right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to get a lot of FOMO when you see that first main event draft board
Yep.
out there because
Yep.
you're thinking, I really want to be in this. I usually wait until kind of the very end because that's you get the most information you can get. There's nothing else that's going to come out, and so it's go time, right? The season's about to start, so I love drafting that night before opening day. I think that's my favorite draft of the year.
Yeah, definitely. I'll add that 11:30 for sure. I know we have 7, 8, and 10, but I know we added 11:30 and filled that one. So definitely. All right. So this was a team that was in first place overall during the last half of the season. You finally moved into first place on July 7th, and you never relinquished that lead. I know people were on your butt, but you never relinquished it. Talk about having that target on your back for 11 plus weeks and how it feels, right? You're always looking backwards.
Yeah, it's stressful. It's stressful for sure. I know I had Greg Martin's team basically memorized at that point, and I could tell every time my phone went off with a notification that one of his guys had hit a homer, stolen a base. It was like day after day. But yeah, he and Scott Slezak, both of those guys were sort of nipping at my heels the whole time, and I'm sure it was 11 weeks, you said. I mean, it was 11 weeks, and yet it felt every day like it was not, it was going to fall apart at some point, and it just never did. And so that's, it's a stressful feeling. It was a lot of fun too. But in retrospect, every single day was, it felt like I was checking the standings.
Yeah. I always ask, is it more stressful than fun? And then some people go, well, both, I guess. But what was it, more stressful or fun?
It's more fun in the end. It's fun. I mean, that's why we do this, right? It's for the fun of it. And, there were times you got to kind of check yourself and be like, hey, this is fantasy baseball. I'm having fun. My guy strikes out. I can take the dog for a walk and turn off games for the night.
Yep. There's only so much you can do, right? You're dependent on the guys that you have. So,
Mm-hmm.
you won almost 91% of available points in this contest that featured 855 teams. Now, that's the fifth highest percentage of points in the NFBC main history. 22 years, it's the fifth highest. Did you have any categories that you were struggling with? Any categories that you had to boost up down the stretch? Or was everything, right at that 90 percentile?
Yeah, around the trade deadline, picked up a lot of saves. That was one spot where I knew I could make up ground, just kind of checking the standings. I got lucky with a couple of guys, and then honestly, it sort of pivoted and it became something where I just was putting in as many starters as I could get to make a move in case. So, it swings back and forth every week, especially when you're at the top of the standings like that. But that was, every single week I would check and just see where can I make up ground, right? Which, I'm behind in runs, which leadoff hitter can I try to pick up from the White Sox or the Royals, or, cycle through the Mike Tauchmans and the Yastrzemskis of the world and stuff. You're just trying to find whatever small edge you can get to catch up in those categories.
Yep. Every week you're making moves. There's no doubt about it, whether it's in fab or just starting lineup. And even on Fridays, you're probably making hitter moves as such. So it's all about counting stats, and that's what you're doing. All right. This is now your third main event league title. You won this league with 136 points. You first joined the NFBC or the main event in 2018. You won the main event league titles in 2020, 2021. Just winning your main event league title is tough enough, right? I mean, we can talk about the overall and stuff, but 1 out of 15 chance. Just talk about the main event and really how tough that is, because nobody really gives up in their main events.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you gotta, like I said, you gotta be obsessed with it, and you kind of have to be obsessed with it for 6 months, right? And the time you got to put into it, the time you got to put into fab, the thought that you have to put into setting your lineups. Obviously, there's fewer and fewer people these days who are giving up on their teams at any point in the year, and so it's just a battle for all of those categories. And then you get down to the end of 6 months, and you see things are still changing. Things are still moving. So it's like every single stat that you can squeeze out of a guy, you're working all year to get that. And it's a grind, but it's a fun grind. It's gotta be something that you're having fun doing, and putting the work in. But I can guarantee nobody's going to win a main event league by just kind of showing up and then, not putting in the time.
Yep, absolutely. All right, you drafted this team online from the eighth spot. You built your team around Jose Ramirez, Zach Wheeler, Wyatt Langford, and Pete Alonso with your first 4 picks. Talk about building that foundation early, and what are you looking for with those first 4 picks? I mean, everyone talks about speed, power. Yeah, we're all looking for that, right?
Yeah. I mean, getting power speed from J Ram there, and especially how that position ended up over the course of the year. The third base was a wasteland for a lot of folks, and so having his stats right at the top at third base really helped solidify things. Wyatt Langford was probably fine, but he still went 2020. He still kept me on pace. And then, obviously the Pete Alonso pick, that was one that I really liked in the 4th round. He was a guy I was trying to get in almost every draft. And a big part of it was just getting the power, getting the RBI from his spot, and that helped really build up a good base where then you could sort of build on that and build the fab pickups on that and the rest of the draft.
Yep. You then took Andres Munoz in round 5, and you got Aroldis Chapman in round 9. Talk about how you deal with saves. I mean, we know Chapman was going round 27 and such, right? So this is one of these where you draft right before the season. He's named the closer. You got to get him, but still, round 9, he was a bargain for you. So just talk about how you try to, in a main event, deal with the saves category.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough because I think at the time I took Chapman there, it might have been the min pick in the main events when I took him. And it was, you can even tell just sort of looking at how the rest of my draft went and also my early fab pickups. Even then, I wasn't 100% sure that I had done the right thing. I picked up Justin Slayton and fab. I had backed him up with Liam Hendricks. So, it felt like I was kind of out on an island there. But, I think those are the shots you got to take. You get into round 9, all of a sudden the closers have really dried up, and you got to try to find, figure out what your strategy is going to be to find something. In the end, I mean, it's just such a huge advantage to have 2 closers who are set all year and who also get you strikeouts and who also get you a sub-2 ERA. All of that just allows you to do so much more with the starting pitching. That was, just a huge key to being able to win with this team.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, though, isn't it? But absolutely, when you do look at championship teams and you do see, especially in the 15-team format, 2 closers that guy had all year long. 1, he's saving a lot of fab, but 2, then he can just rotate in more starters or even a third reliever if he wants to get some whip and ERA and such. But that is a lot easier said than done, as you just said. All right, you really nailed your early picks. You got Wilson Contreras in round 6. He was kind of that cheat code because catcher eligibility, but got all his playing time at first base. Then you hit it on Hunter Brown, Freddie Peralta in rounds 8 and 9. Talk about loading up on hitting early, but you still had 2 closers and 3 number 1 pitchers by round 9.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big key, right? Is to only have Wheeler as the only SP through 6 rounds. And then to get a guy like Freddie Peralta and Hunter Brown, I mean, those guys now are going a lot higher in the draft, right? And so, I mean, that is, I think, both the key and also the challenge of trying to draft these teams is you got to give up something early. You give up something early to build that hitting base, then you got to nail those pitchers in rounds 7 and 8 and 9, and you got to find the right guys on this team. I just happened to land on the right guys that helped build it up. So yeah, that was a big piece of it.
Yeah, Hunter Brown was fantastic. Freddie Peralta was the ace we wanted in Milwaukee. He was really, really good, 200 strikeouts. Then you hit on Nathan Eovaldi. Now, again, you're drafting late, and so you got him in the 13th round. I was talking with, I think it was Mike Mager, who had him at round 18, right? But still at round 13, he was a hell of a bargain. He was on almost every championship team that I can think of on the national scene with us. So talk about him and what you saw in Eovaldi.
Yeah, I've loved Eovaldi for a long time. It's just a matter of when is he going to get hurt, and when are you going to have to drop him. But when he's in your lineup, the last couple of years, he's been incredible. So that was just a big piece of it is, as a SP5, around that range. I loved that pick. And,
Yep.
it just so happened that he lasted long enough into the season to be
Yep.
pretty darn valuable for where he went.
Absolutely, for a lot of teams, for sure. All right, other good picks were Andy Diaz in round 14. You had Jacob Wilson in round 18, Abreu in round 22. You can mention any other ones if I missed them, but when you finished this draft, did you feel good about it? Was it so-so? What was your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, I felt pretty good about it. You mentioned Yandy and Jacob Wilson there. That's a big part of recovering the batting average, right? And this team had good batting average all
Yep.
year long. That's always such a tough thing to try to chase in season to try to recover from.
Right.
To get those guys as late as I got them to be able to bring that batting average up just really helped. Again, give more flexibility throughout the season. You can shuttle guys in and out of your lineup without worrying too much about how they're going to hit your batting average. So yeah, I mean, I think those are honestly the right picks to kind of highlight in the later part of the draft. After round 20, like honestly, there's not much that I got right, but things went well enough in the first 20 rounds that
Yeah.
it was good enough, and you can build on that. So
Hey, we always say rounds really 11 through 20 are the keys. I mean, because everybody's got good players, right? Out of the top 150. It depends how they're stacked up and such. Like you said, with batting average, hey, how do you make that up? You can in rounds
yeah,
11 through 20 sometimes, but that is really the key. And yeah, after round 23, you can whiff, and that's what Fab's all about. So let's kind of talk about Fab. I say it. It's tough. It's a chore. We all know it. It's 26, 27 weeks of Fab. Do you find it as a chore, or is finding diamonds in the rough a lot of fun?
it's again, it's obviously it's hard work, but it's a lot of fun too. The it's always right down to the deadline on Sunday nights.
Yeah,
Like you mentioned, I'm on the West Coast
yeah,
here, so
tougher.
it's a little earlier. I got to try to balance getting my kids to bed and also making sure I don't miss any news at the last minute. Some closer change or something. So
Yep,
every week is a new, unique challenge. Sometimes you're on vacation and
yep,
you don't want to be doing Fab, but it's also, I think it's in some ways it's easier than ever because information is out there on right at your fingertips,
mhm,
on your phone. All of the different folks doing content right now, covering everything. All of that is, it's easy to catch up quickly at the very last minute and make your changes. And you guys, I think, have done a good job with the Fab,
mhm,
process on your site as well in terms of how easy it is to quickly swap out bids. You
mhm,
got multiple teams, you can find a guy that you were bidding on that all of a sudden you want to remove from all your bid lists, and
yep.
one click and he's gone, right? So that type of functionality helps make it easier as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did spend a lot of time on Fab. We know how important it is to you guys. Are you working on Fab throughout the week, or are you one of these guys that waits till Sunday and does it all?
I try to wait until as late as
Do you?
possible because you do it early in the week and then you look at it a couple days later and you're like, what was I thinking? And you change everything. So
Yeah,
I try, but obviously you're thinking about it from Monday on, thinking about it every day of the week.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right, let's talk about some of these diamonds in the rough that you found. One was Cade Horton for 106 on May 11th. Now, he didn't stay healthy the whole year, but when he was pitching, he put up some damn good numbers.
Yeah. Cade Horton and Trevor Rogers were probably two of the best Fab pickups that I had all year, and
Yeah,
the timing worked out pretty well. Where had guys like Wheeler and Eovaldi go down with injuries later in the year and could just plug
yeah,
in those guys and not skip a beat. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously there's a lot of luck involved in sort of landing on those guys, but yeah, I mean, those were huge Fab pickups and helped me sort of keep pace in the pitching categories for as
yep,
long as I could.
yep. You added Evan Carter on June 1st, Giancarlo Stanton on June 22nd. I think you talked about it, Dennis Santana on August 3rd. Maybe I missed a few other ones, but talk about those Fab pickups and how they did help you win the overall title.
Yeah, I think if you look through the entire season of Fab pickups, there were a lot of outfielders. I was trying to land on an outfielder. Just looking at my draft,
Yeah,
I had you mentioned Langford at the top, and I had Taylor Ward in the draft. But then after that, it was sort of a hodgepodge of different guys that I was kind of streaming in and out of there. So throughout the year, just looking for any outfielders I could find. Stanton was one of them. Evan Carter was one of them. But less heralded guys. Basically any outfielders that I could find that I could stream in, even if it was just a week. And get the stats and then move on to the next guy. That was a big piece of it.
Yeah, nice. All right, let's talk about your history in the NFBC, because you joined us much later than most of our other previous main event champions. I don't know if people know all this about you or not, but you joined the NFBC in 2018 with one $50 draft champions team. Do you remember how you first heard about the NFBC and what made you join us that year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certain it was a podcast that Rob Silver did, where he was talking about his main event win. And then start poking around the site and looking at what sort of caught my interest. The 50s, I mean, I think that's a great format. It was something that I was immediately drawn to. I had been playing in some leagues that were dynasty leagues. Mm-hmm. Leagues and deeper leagues, and so the idea of a draft and hold type of format, and just happened to hit on the right guys that year and won that league and sort of parlayed it into playing more leagues the next year, and it built from there.
Yeah, definitely. So had you been playing local fantasy baseball leagues? How did you, this wasn't the first time you played this, right?
Yeah, I've got a league that's been going on, a 20-team dynasty league with some friends that's been going on almost 20 years now.
Wow.
So
Nice.
That one's still going. I still play in it. And that was for a long time the only league that I did.
Yeah.
But since then I've branched out and play that league plus then on NFBC, and that's basically it.
Well, you need to bring 19 of your other league mates over to the NFBC. I might have to give you a commission if you can bring them all over. Do you do any fantasy football out there in the Seattle area?
Not much fantasy football. I got some. I got a league that I play with some work friends, and it's enough to pass the time. But honestly, now these days I can draft a draft champions team during football season. I don't need to think about football at all. I can just do baseball year round.
There you go. All right. For the record, you won that $50 DC league in 2018. That one league you entered, you won. So in 2019, you jumped into 6 draft champions leagues at prices ranging from $150 to $1,000. You won your $400 league title. So what made you jump into more DCs? Like you said, you did like that format though, right?
Yeah, I love that format. I love drafting throughout the off season. And so, and you guys offer great discounts on the 3-packs and the 6-packs. And, so that was kind of what I figured was my best shot at winning another league the next year. Like you said, winning one of those 400s, certainly that helped out a lot. Right. And it's just building up some bankroll, building up, the entry fees for the next year. That was a big piece of it.
Yeah. All right. 2020, the COVID year. I always say that was like dog years on me. I aged in dog years. That one year, it's supposed to be 7 years. I think I aged more than 7 years that year. But you joined the main event for the first time. You won your sprint main event league title and you finished 10th overall. Kind of talk about the reason you felt comfortable enough to get into the main event. And did the results even surprise you? 10th overall.
Yeah, it surprised me. It was honestly, it was kind of on a whim. That was such a weird year.
Yeah.
And I had drafted a number of DC teams, and when I had no idea what was going to happen that season. When you reopened the sprint main events, I figured, well, I have no idea what these DC teams are going to do anymore because I had no idea what was going to happen that season when I drafted them. So I thought, well, I'll enter the main event. I'll do this for the first time. And, at the very least, if the fab is too overwhelming, it's a shorter season. I can deal with that piece of it. I just happened to get, run into a little bit of luck and a little bit of good fortune and did pretty well in that league.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it was a $1,200 price point because we had to refund all the main events. All the main events. We were sold out. I mean, New York was sold out. I was already in New York. Tom and I flew to New York on the day when they canceled the basketball season and everything. We were right across the street from Madison Square Garden. The Big East tournament was being held, and we got to our hotel, and they had canceled the Big East tournament at halftime of the Creighton game, and Creighton fans were coming in going, "That sucked. We should have played it out." Other people are coming in going, "Get out of here. Get out of downtown." I mean, it was surreal. It was so crazy. But yeah, that was a wild sprint season for sure. Okay, that was your only main event 2020. You won it, but you did play 10 DCs, like you said. We didn't refund. We just picked it up and played, and everybody had a good one. You won the $400 league. So there you go. So you were starting to get a hold of or a hang of this 15-team format. If you were in a 20-team dynasty, this wasn't too big of a change for you, but is there a learning curve when it comes to the 15-team leagues?
Yeah, there's always a learning curve. Honestly, it's the learning curve has been a little bit the opposite direction in terms of I sometimes get hooked on guys who aren't good enough to be drafted or rostered in a 15-team league, but you get your eyes set on them, and you have to kind of back away and be like, all right, there's only 15 teams in this league. I got 14 teams to beat. But yeah, I mean, it's I think every format is different. It takes a little bit to figure out what works and what doesn't. I think the 15-team leagues seem to work pretty well for me. So I try to stick with those as much as possible, play a couple of OCs, but really stick to the 15 teams for the most part.
Yep, it makes sense for sure. Okay, so 2021, you took 2 main event leagues, you cashed in both, won your second main event league title, and finished 23rd overall. Okay, you've entered 3 main events, you've won 2 league titles. Did you think this was kids play? No wonder you're in a 20 team. This is nothing, right?
No. I mean, it was like I said, a lot of hard work, some good luck. That's none of it is easy. It certainly, I had a lot of success with it, but none of it at any point ever felt like it was child's play.
All right. So you had 2 main event teams each in 2022, 2023. Hey, you didn't cash in those. So there you go. Then 2024, you finished second in one of your main event league titles, but finished 8th overall. Talk about that, because did that really give you the taste that, okay, this was a season long now, it's not a sprint season. I was in the running for the overall title, but you didn't win your main event. Who beat you in the league that year?
It was Jason Santu. It was one of Jason Santu's teams. He finished second and third that year, right?
Yeah.
And he had a great team, and I couldn't catch him. But yeah, I mean, it gave me a lot of insight into what it was going to take to finish first. And I think there's a pretty big gap, honestly, even between 8th and 1st. You look at the points and you realize, man, that is still a canyon to cross. I at least could kind of taste it and figure out, what it would take to get to 1st. And, I think it certainly helped play a role in how I kind of built the teams the next year.
Yeah. I always wonder, when you're battling for the league title and also battling for the overall title, when you're making moves and lineup decisions, which one are you shooting for?
Yeah, there's a little bit of 4D chess going on there.
Yeah.
You have to think through so many different scenarios. I mean, it was the same thing this year too, because I was in one of my other teams was in a league with Scott Slezak, who ended up finishing second. And so with that team, I had to try to figure out through Fab, all right, what does Scott need?
Yeah.
Walk him in this league to help my team in the other league. So, it's so many different scenarios that go through your mind.
Yeah, that's good. Scott's a great guy. I always see him out in Arizona at the fall league games. So he was worn out by the time I saw him, but he said it was a fun race as well. So no doubt. So last year you did join the CLQ, and that got you to join the RotoWire Online Championship for the very first time. And you won your league title and finished 24th with that one. So talk about the 12-team format. What did you like, didn't like? What was the experience in the 12-teamer?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've started to kind of do a team every year where I'll do a co-owned team with myself and my father-in-law and get a little bit of insight from my son as well. That one, I think it's just a little more approachable in terms of, you don't quite run out of players that those guys have heard of until much later in the draft. And so they could kind of help me out with that. Obviously everybody's team is significantly better in the 12-team leagues. And so you got to kind of take a little bit of a different strategy to it. But, I've had fun doing it. I think I will probably stick with doing an OC, at least one OC every year, because, it's kind of a fun change of pace. And obviously the CLQ is a great idea. I enjoy participating in it. I've come really close to making the final table both years and just haven't quite gotten over the hump. So looking to get there. But yeah, I mean, the 12-team leagues I think are great. It's a lot of fun, and I'll continue to play them every year, I think.
Cool. So yeah, you talk about your CLQ. I mean, you're really, really good at DCs, and your main event in that CLQ was first overall. Your OC was 23rd overall, but your DC let you down, right? So what do you got to say about that?
Yeah, I mean that shows how tough it is, right?
Yeah.
All three of those teams have got to be they've got to be good. They've got to be really good.
Yeah.
And it's not enough to have one good team. It's not enough even to have two good teams. All three of them are required. And so I think it's what makes that contest unique and a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, you finished first in the main overall, but again, it's 30 different categories, and every day you're looking at 30 different categories, which is pretty cool. I think it's for $250 for 27 weeks. I think it's a bargain. Jump into CLQ, everybody. You're going to love it for sure. So last year you took 3 main event teams. You drafted all of them during that final week. Is that still the plan? You don't do any early ones. You like the later main events, right?
Yeah, I like to do the later ones. I think, like I told you, there's a little bit of FOMO when that first draft board comes
Yeah.
out from the main event, and you wish you were participating in that. But I try to hold off as long as possible. We'll see what the plan ends up being this year. But always trying to wait until the last possible minute to get a draft in.
All right, so you are coming to Las Vegas for the very first time in March. You're at the Rio. How excited are you about not only how cool it's going to be to meet everybody, but these are all guys you've been competing online. You haven't put a face to a name yet, and you're coming. You're coming to the Friday night party, so we can have some shots with you there as well. So, kind of talk about coming to Vegas for the first time.
Yeah, I'm excited. That's it's I'm sure it's a different experience. You draft at home online, and those drafts are a lot of fun. But there's nobody else around to talk about the draft with, and to have all that chatter to be around everybody who's got interest in it. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
You're going to love the Saturday because we have 8 leagues going in a 22,000 square foot ballroom. They're all going at the same time. Big 11-foot by 14-foot screens where they project the names right up there. And then we have the stage of champions. We have a special stage there where we bring up all past champions and all Hall of Famers. And you're going to be the last one to be called up. And then you're going to give a nice little speech. 120 teams, almost 200 people in that room. Are you ready for that one?
Yeah, sure.
It's easy. You're right next to me. I'll be holding your hand.
All right. As long as you're holding my hand, then I'm good.
No, it's going to be a lot of fun. And the Saturday is just so special because everything else, the auctions are in private rooms and ballrooms and such. And then we take all the walls down and we got 22,000 square feet. So it's going to be cool. All right. You've done a lot of DCs already. Can you tell us any trends you're seeing? I mean, we've talked about it the last couple of days. Closers going higher, only 3 starting pitchers in the first round. We usually see more starting pitchers once we get to Vegas and the main events. What trends can you tell us that you're seeing so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think the closers is always going to be a big thing before February, because you got so many uncertain jobs, and it feels like more than ever there's just so few of those guys at the top that are really reliable closers. You got so many spots. Who's going to be closing for the Twins? Who's going to be getting saves for the Nationals?
Yep.
Does it matter? And so all of that, it has to play. I think you at least, if you're going into a draft, you at least got to know what your strategy is. I don't know if there's a right or a wrong strategy in any draft right now to approaching it, but you got to have some strategy, or else you're just going to get buried on it.
Yep.
And then this is the time of year where like the injuries start coming, hot and heavy.
Yeah.
Right? And so trying to figure out how to navigate, all of the impact of that, whether you're still going to take a guy like Corbin Carroll, who's now got an injury, and what the impact is going to be to other guys on that team, that type of stuff. I think it's a lot of fun. You go sort of months and months without there being really any news at all. And then all of a sudden it's just the floodgates open and there's all kinds of news every single day that you got to react to.
First day of spring training, we got 3 hamate bone injuries. It's like crazy, but you're absolutely right. Every day it changes, and we haven't even had any spring training games yet. So let me just ask you about your KDS preferences. I assume in Draft champions, you're kind of all over the board trying to feel it all out and stuff. But if a main event was tomorrow, what does KDS look like for you?
Ooh, man, it's tough to pass being in the top 3 spots right now. Those top 3 guys I think are really elite.
Yep.
I like drafting from the middle of drafts, just sort of strategically. But I think if I was mapping it out right now for which guys I wanted to get, it's tough to pass on 1, 2, 3.
Yep. How about 12 teamers and probably the same thing?
Yeah, 12 teamers. 12 teamers. I think I'm good drafting from just about anywhere. I might push more towards the end of the first round in a 12 teamer, just because I think that the strategy changes a little bit in terms of how much risk I'm willing to take on and when I'm willing to take my pitchers and when I'm willing to push the closers. But I gotta think about it. We got that 750 OC coming up in Vegas. I got to talk to my father-in-law. We'll figure out where exactly.
There you go. That ought to be a fun, the old midnight madness, and then give a speech the next morning, drinking shots up there in the suite. I love it. Welcome to the family. Welcome to the NFBC family. You're going to have a lot of fun up there. But no, that's going to be great. Good stuff. So, Todd, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Congrats on winning the main event overall title. Best of luck this year in all of your leagues, and I certainly look forward to meeting you out there in Vegas for the first time. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks much. And again, good luck in all your leagues. All right. That's a wrap on the NFBC Champions Podcast Week. 5 podcasts with 5 national champions. I'd like to thank my guests, James Timoni, Mike Mager, Thomas Warner, Zach Waxman, and Todd Hoppe. You can find all of these interviews on the High Stakes Fantasy Network YouTube channel. Thanks all, and hey, best of luck in all your drafts going forward. See you in Vegas.
Thank you for joining us on the High Stakes Fantasy Network podcast. To get in the game, go to playnfc.com.